Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everybody Matters, our Family and Friends edition. I'm Jill Catherine, the host of our chat, and this is our time every month that we take a few moments to connect with you and tune in with you and share with you some tips and insights on how you can support your loved one going through their recovery from an eating disorder or a form of disordered eating or body dissatisfaction. And so what we do on our videos here is we give you some tips and insights. Every single one of us has a unique situation. So I certainly encourage you just to take what resonates with you and, leave the rest. If there's one thing, one word or one sentence that you heard today that you can take and bring back and apply in a way that might be helpful to you is what we aim to do. We certainly can't address all the unique details of what your situation is because, how anybody struggles is deeply personal. There are common themes that those of us who have faced this disease and these disorders can relate to, and that are universal themes that are necessary, that are part of recovery. And so those are the things that I tap in today here with you, and just really encourage you to, be your own activist on this conversation, actively seeking something that you think could be helpful to you. There are many stages to recovery from an eating disorder, and there are stages to just self-love, right? And the time it takes to go through those stages is just different for everybody. So you might be tuning into this call, and you might first have, your loved one might first be diagnosed with this disease and you don't know anything about it, or you might be 5 years into this and still trying to find ways to support your loved one. So I encourage you, we have a whole collection of videos that are public, available to you. They're all named and have titles and descriptions. And so hopefully there could be something that really, if you speaks a specific need of what stage you're at. There are some, that really talk to early on. About setting up a treatment team and what that looks like and why that's so important. So I encourage you to go through that collection and see if there's something that meets your need right now. What we talk about, the evolution of our chats are to the point where, we talk more broadly about ways that you can support your loved one, that through you getting insight into what it's like to go through recovery and how difficult that is, and the changes that we have to make and the changes that we go through. So, this time of year is the beginning of the year, right? It's January. And so we just come off, this holiday rush. We talked last month. We gave you some tips on how you could support your loved one during the holidays. So it's all come and gone, and now it's the new year. And this is, a hotbed time of year where there's so many messages out in the world that are all about starting the new year right. And a lot of that has to do with some form of diet or fitness or exercise, because, we love, our marketing and advertising industries love to sell to us that we're not enough, that we're not healthy enough or fit enough or thin enough or beautiful enough, that we're all looking for these answers to our problems that have to do with some, external measure of worth. And so this is a time of year that those who are struggling with this disease and in stages of just body dissatisfaction, can be highly triggered during these times of year. And even people who have if they would never even identify with having any sort of dissatisfaction or eating disorder, but they too can feel affected, like, oh, maybe I should start going to the gym, or really starting to maybe think or not even feel good about themselves. It's pretty common this time of year. We're all saturated with these extra push of messages and images of not being enough. and particularly around our bodies, right? And so what we aim to do in this chat right now is to give you some, tips on how you could support your loved one through this time of year. So one of those things is by encouraging any of us, right? Encouraging your loved one. What if they are falling into this flow of the new year, sort of a new beginning, a new intention? It's a really good opportunity for you to help them and you to join them on turning a goal or something, a New Year's, focus of a goal or something people want to do that's new, something that's inward, an inward focus. This year I want to be more gentle to myself. This year I want to criticize myself less. This year I want to practice self-love more. This year I want to appreciate or be in a state of gratitude. So or whatever. So helping your loved one, refocus through all this noise at this time of year that can be very triggering, is to together focus on an inward seeking experience, an inward focus goal around values, an inward focus goal around values. And I think it could be very helpful is to sharing that together about that inward focus of to give oneself, right? As opposed to, I just want to be more loving to others. I also want to be more loving to myself, to help them to create an inward value-based, feeling-based goal that also is that they'll do to themselves. That's just not giving to others. Part of this recovery process is coming back into balance with a relationship with ourselves inside that helps us to build trust that we can rely on ourselves to be enough, to feel worthy, to feel loved, that we matter, that it's safe to be us, that it's, safety is such a big part of this, of the core emotional root is us wanting to feel safe just as we are. And so we can focus on an inward goal for the new year. It could be, is to remind myself that it's safe to be me. That's my goal, is to remind myself it's safe to be me. And then helping them to live out that goal. So if it's safe to be me, then what does me want to do? And help to be in that goal together. So that's one. And take that however that might make sense for you in your life, in your situation with your loved one, is to help to bring that goal inward. Another part is with all the noise that happens this time of year, right? So if, say, your loved one has doesn't necessarily want to set a goal, right? Isn't buying into that New Year's, or I got to make a New Year's resolution, but you just notice that they're feeling triggered, right? Because of this time of year. And so they might not want to have anything to do with setting a new intention, but you can tell they're getting really upset and triggered by it. Number one, I encourage you to have a conversation about it. Talk about how this time get some education on it, right? Do some research on how and why this time of year advertisers of the diet industry bombard us with messages. Start to help your loved one to disempower how impactful these messages are. Help them to see, what advertising is about. Help them to understand and help yourselves to understand what this system is all about. That there's a rhyme and a reason to making us not feel good about ourselves, and that there is these capitalistic components that happen during this time of year. And this isn't this is nothing more than just helping our loved ones to see sort of the black and white components of our economy. The dye industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The beauty industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So this is a great opportunity for you to learn, and you to learn with your loved one. I mean, there's awesome documentaries out there. Misrepresentation is one that I highly recommend. I think it takes you through a great history of how media affects us, and different components around that, around the commodification of our bodies, and particularly with women and body. So, we don't just feel this way just because we feel this way, right? We're being persuaded in ways to have this not enough relationship with our bodies, this feeling of not enoughness. People are spending a lot of money for us to make us feel that way. And, the reasons why we struggle with eating disorders are more complex than the images media pushes out. And those images the media pushes out plants very fertile seeds that can be grown with these other complex issues that we have. So they're very intertwined. So it's a great opportunity this time of year to get some education together. Embrace is a documentary that is has some great education around media too. Jean Kilbourne, Killing Us Softly, is another really good documentary that talks about media influence. So education is power, is knowledge. And so we can start to disempower ourselves from feeling the weight and the oppression and the shame that happens this time of year about us not being enough, as a way to really help support them in their recovery. So there's as difficult as it can be to see your loved one being triggered, there's always an opportunity, because what happens in a trigger? This is something we talk about on our weekly chat, as I share with you some of the broader things we talk about there, so you get some insight. And one of the things that we talked about in our chat is how we all have this, wounded parts of ourselves that get triggered, right? We do. It's sort of part of that human nature, and we learn how to be in relationship with that wounded part of ourselves that gets triggered. So this time of year, with triggering happens is what we can do. That's a really powerful practice, is ask ourselves, what part of me is feeling wounded right now when we're being triggered? So when you see your loved one, if they're being triggered, and you can sit there and hold a space and ask them if they want to talk, one thing you can help ask them to discover for themselves is what part of themselves is feeling wounded right now. The wounded part that's being triggered, what does it need? Why does it feel so hurt? What about it needs attention? And that's how we can use times of year right now that are very triggering as a way to reclaim our power. Because when we can help to articulate what part of us is feeling wounded and what it needs, then right then in that moment, we can start to give ourselves what we need. We don't have to be that wounded. Your loved one doesn't have to be the wounded part of themselves that feels like the part they could be feeling like they're not enough, that they're unworthy, that they're not beautiful enough, that they're not worthy of love, that they're not enough to be loved. And and once we give voice to that, then we can then be in a state to realize that, that's what I'm really feeling. And if that's what I'm really feeling, that's what I can give myself. And you could be part of that process with them, and being willing to sit down and have that conversation. So I know it's, a former mentor of mine, still a mentor of mine, would often say around conflict he would say, walk closer to conflict. Walk closer to conflict. And I know most times that's counterintuitive. We want to go the other way of conflict. And, sometimes we need to give conflict space too. But what I love about his mission and his message there is that we have to walk closer to it and not be afraid by it, and not be afraid to say, do you want to talk about it? I'll just be here to listen. Not be afraid to say, it feels like to me that you might be hurting right now. Do you want to talk about it? I'm happy just to listen. It allows us to say, I'm hurting right now. Can I talk with you? All right, walking closer to that conflict. So this is a really good time of year for us to walk closer to the conflict of that larger noise by inviting your loved one and just checking in with them, see how they're doing, asking them, just checking in, how are you doing, with all this New Year stuff. Is there anything you want to share about? Does that bring up anything for you that I can support you on? And also, if it brings up something for you, we say this often every month, how valuable it is for you when you are in relationship to your loved one is to be as authentic and vulnerable as you can be, as human as you can be, without the mask of perfection on. We're learning how to be real through recovery. We're learning not to fake, and be how other people want us to be. We're trying to learn how to be real. So as much as you can be real with us, we're really going to learn a lot. It's going to help us. It's going to help us no matter what age of the dynamic. Realness helps realness, whatever age we're at. So to recap, right, for this time of year, ways that you can support your loved one through this New Year craze is, one, if they are into setting New Year's resolutions, is to encourage one and join them and do one of your own of an inward resolution, an inward goal, as a way to values-based for themselves too. That's not just for others, but that's also for themselves, right? That has nothing to do with external, right? All inward focus. If they're not into resolutions, but they're really being affected by this time of year, education. Let's disempower what's happening this time of year. Some great documentaries, have a conversation, okay? And to, ask them if they're doing okay. And let them know that you're there and available to talk about it, and that you understand this time of year can trigger stuff for you too, about shame and worthiness, of body shaming. Talk about body shaming. Talk about how much body shaming there is. There's a great question I'll leave you with that says, why does society place such a high value on beauty when it serves no functional purpose? Maybe that's something you can just get to talk with your loved one. Bring that question up. Why do you think? Engage in a deep philosophical question like this that really gets at our values, our self-values. So I encourage you to walk closer to conflict this time of year and be there to support your loved one and join in an internal goal-setting practice together. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next month.